Hi, I'm David Hardy, and in this video I'm going to be testing a lavalier microphone being plugged directly into a camcorder and then compare that recording to the same microphone using the Rode RODELink wireless system. Okay, so the simple point of this video then is to see if there's any differences between plugging a lavalier straight into a camcorder or the lavalier being plugged into the camcorder via the Rode RODELink wireless system. In this instance, I'm using a Primo EM172, which is really good for this test because it's very sensitive and it's just a really good clean microphone. Anyway, the reason why I'm doing this test is because my good YouTube buddy, Mr. Ian Craig, sent me an email this morning because he'd watched the last video that I'd done to do with the RODELink system, and he came up with that exact scenario. And you know, I just think it's an amazing thing that Ian's asked about there. So basically what I've done, I've come out and done the test. It's primarily for Ian, obviously, but hopefully, you know, it might be useful for like other people on YouTube who either use this system or are interested in getting one, or just basically have an interest in these types of tests. So anyway, right now I've got the microphone obviously plugged directly into the camcorder. So what this is the example of being hardwired straight to the camcorder. So I should have given enough dialogue here for us to get a really good idea how this, you know, how this sounds. So what I'm going to do shortly is go to the same thing but using the RODELink. Then after that I'll do a little bit of a silence test to see about noise sensitivity, such things, and then I'll also do a bit of a count test. What I'll then do, I'll go indoors and I'll do two brief ones indoors with and without the RODELink as well, just because it'll be a different environment and it might give us slightly different results. We never know until we try these things. And then what I'll do after that, I'll do a bit of a summary over the whole thing. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is cut away to the take, which is using the RODELink. Okay, so I'm now onto the RODELink, and the dialogue that I'm going to do here to kind of give us the example of how it sounds is going to consist of a specific technical function of this system, which is what drew me to it. Well, that and the fact that it's an amazing price for what it is. Now basically, the main reason why I got it technically is because it's a digital system. So what happens here is the signal that's coming down the cable from the microphone is what's called an analog signal. When it gets to the transmitter unit, it gets turned into a digital signal. So what happens is the transmitter, as well as being a radio transmitter, it's also an analog to digital converter, or an A to D. So it does that at 44.1 kilohertz at a bit depth of 24 bits. So at that point, it's just a ton of zeros and ones. Then what it does, it uses the 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency to send all them zeros and ones to the receiver unit. Effectively, it's bit streaming the digital data to the receiver. Then at the receiver end, that does the reverse. So what that's got inside it is a D to A, or digital to analog converter. So what that does, it takes the digital signal and then reconverts it back to an analog signal, and then that's what exits the receiver and goes into whatever recording device that you're using. In this instance, my camcorder. So what that means is that signal that's the signal that leaves the transmitter and goes to the receiver is as robust as you can get. It won't be subject to a ton of things that can happen to an analog audio signal. Anyway, that's the basis of the main reason why I got this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'll go into some silence and some count tests as well, so we can get a bit of a gauge as to like sensitivity and maybe any extra hiss behind it and stuff like that. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so I'm indoors now, and the first part of the indoor test is being hardwired with the microphone. So what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit, but like I said, outside, I won't do too much indoors because I've already done a lot outdoors, and realistically, this indoor test is just to give us a taster for a different environment. But maybe what's more important with the indoor part of this test is when it gets to the silence test. Because I don't have as much kind of like ambient noise going on indoors, it may give us a better opportunity to see if there's any differences in the hiss levels between it being hardwired or whether it's going through the RODELink system. Okay, so that'll probably be enough now. So what I'm going to do is just cut away to a take with the RODELink system. Okay, so I'm now onto the RODELink for the indoor part of this test. And again, I'll just keep this quite brief, do a little bit of nattering and stuff, just to give us a bit of an idea how this sounds compared to the previous take, hardwired indoors. And yeah, you know, there isn't really much else to say about this. I just need to kind of do a few more words in order for us to get a gauge of the tonality indoors and whatnot. Okay, so that should be about enough there. So what I'm going to do now is go to the silence test and then a count test, and then I'll come back and do a bit of a summary. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so to the summary then, and before I kick into it, I just want to make a note that there's going to be a link in the descriptions below to a WAV file that you can download in order to listen to this audio completely uncompressed. It's not that YouTube sounds bad or anything with its audio compression, but it does compress nonetheless. Anyway, so there's going to be a link so you can go and get a WAV file if you want to. Anyway, so I'll try and keep the summary a little bit shorter than most of them because there's only really two things to discuss here. Oh, and by the way, I'm actually using the RODELink for doing the summary as well. Now, on very, very close listening, there's a slight EQ change between the two ways of recording. Now, the way that kind of sounded to me was that the RODELink versions were slightly a little bit brighter in EQ terms, and maybe the direct linked versions or the hardwired versions, maybe they had a slight bit more very low bottom into them as well. Now, I wouldn't say that they were huge differences, but they were a slight difference nonetheless. Now, I can only surmise that that's down to the differences in the analog to digital conversion and the digital to analog conversion, because although these processes occur on loads of different devices, there's a reason why, say, people will pay a lot of money for a DAC, for instance, because some like converters are just better than others, or some of them have a slightly different tonal characteristic. Now, it's not that in any event either of them types of takes one was worse or anything, because personally, if push comes to shove, I actually preferred the versions coming off the RODELink. They almost seem to have a bit more slight clarity in like the upper mid to them and didn't sound quite as weighted in the bottom. Now, that's a personal taste thing. And as far as noise is concerned, there wasn't really any. If you listen carefully, you might think that the RODELink version, especially on the indoor portion of the test, you may think that that was slightly hissier. It wasn't, it's just the EQ. Because when I look back at it on the VUs as well, there was literally no difference in the VUs. They didn't move at all from one to the other. So that would suggest that the only difference in there is a tonality thing. Again, probably down to the conversion system. That's about it really, all that I noticed. So yeah, I think that the test itself, I think, was a very interesting one. So thanks again to Ian for suggesting to do that. And yeah, it'd be great to hear if anybody has got like their opinions on the test and whatnot, and whatever they thought may have been the better or the worst one and stuff like that. But in any event, neither of the two takes were kind of bad, or not the two takes, but the two different ways of recording. Neither of them were particularly bad or anything like that. And I think it just then comes down to personal taste, but there was definitely a slight difference in there. Anyways, yeah, I could go on about this all day long and just kind of go round in circles as to the whys and what fors, but you can make these decisions up for yourself as to whether or not you thought it was bad or not or whatever. But the one thing that I definitely would say is that the RODELink system is fantastic. In my books, it's a total winner. Anyways, so the last thing that remains for me to say right now is thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.